Well, good morning, Larry.
Good morning.
Welcome to our Earth Day Sunday worship. And you've been a real busy guy around the church these past few years before I got here, making several significant upgrades to our church building, securing grants, and researching for next steps in the church. Perhaps we can take a quick look at the video that explains the need to reduce our carbon footprint and then talk about some of the upgrades we made. So we'll invite folks to watch the video at this point.
Across the planet, the climate crisis is growing. It's a pressing issue that requires urgent action. The hopeful news? We can see the shift towards a low-carbon future starting to happen. The United Church of Canada is committing to reducing our carbon emissions by 80% by 2050, in line with the Paris climate targets. We're partnering with Faith in the Common Good to launch Faithful Footprints, providing tools and grants that support congregations to meet that target. The energy used to light and heat United Church buildings is one of our largest sources of carbon emissions, and it's also one of our biggest expenses. So our first focus will be to engage with 500 congregations by 2025 to improve the energy efficiency of their buildings and to share lessons they can take into their homes and workplaces.
Through doing a whole building energy audit, we've realized how much we are just polluting unnecessarily in ways that we can save not only money, but to cut down our carbon dioxide emissions.
The income from the solar system would pay for the solar installation itself in 8 years, and over the remaining 25 years of their loan would pay for the new steel roof that they installed and the repairs to the eaves. The solar income really adds to the bank account of the church.
We recognize that to bring truly inspiring climate leadership to our communities, we must first put our own house in order. Together, we can renew our congregations, care for the planet, save money, and stop climate pollution. Faithful Footprints is about living our climate commitments for future generations and for all of creation. Find out more and get your congregation involved at faithfulfootprints.org.
How about we go for a tour, Larry, to see the changes in the church?
Good. Let's go.
You're gonna walk into the attic through the hatch.
Yeah.
We don't have any money for an elevator. This is the alcove for the organ underneath, and we built this frame. The idea is to achieve R60, which is code for insulation up in the attic. And the only way we could do that, because of the dome of the organ came up so high, we built this little structure to put some additional insulation. There's more insulation in the towers. That's southeast tower, and the southwest tower is the same. Up in the attic here, we had about R24, maybe R30 in places, and probably less than that in other places. And everything's up to code. Everything's up to R60. This particular area is one of the vents from the sanctuary. We've got handles so that they're completely removable. We just swing them back onto the frame in the summertime, pull them forward in the fall when it gets cold, and we're all set. All of these walkways that we're standing on, these were all built by church people as well as part of the project. The chandelier's been all retrofitted to LED bulbs. We put all brand new sockets in, well, with no grounding, so we installed our grounding system on it, and we're all back in business. This is a new LVL beams that we installed for a fall restraint system. We just got that installed last week, as a matter of fact. And that's about it for the attic.
Do we want to walk over to the other towers?
If you want to.
Yeah.
hard to see, but this one wall here is that's the northeast tower. It's totally enclosed. It's got its own hatchway up from the floor in the balcony.
Right. Yeah.
And then at the far side, I don't know if you can see it, but there's a doorway through. That's the northwest tower.
Okay.
And again, all of these towers were all insulated as part of the Faithful Footprints grant project.
You can see the little doorway there.
Yeah.
Yep. Very good. Well, it's good that we have the walkways up here, Larry, because you want to tell about the guy that went through the...
Yeah, well, we could do that. We actually had two people go through. Yours truly went through, trying to build the walkways. I stepped backwards and went down through the ceiling of the sanctuary up to my hip. Actually, it was on this walkway here. The insulation contractor walked off the end of the walkway and down through the ceiling here. So
Wow.
twice.
Anything about the windows up here that you want to mention?
Windows?
Yeah, there's nothing, there was no work done to the windows.
No, the only thing did here, Reverend Carey, is the front, the shuttered one with the louvered.
Oh, okay, yeah.
We ended up putting screening on that because it was birds and pigeons and bats getting through there.
Okay.
You can believe it, that LED light that we bought at the church,
Yeah.
that thing runs off a reduced voltage. We just got it plugged into one of the ceiling fans in the sanctuary.
Oh, wow.
It runs off of that.
Huh. I'll just record you from here if you want to say something about
Well,
the...
these back windows are all screened and louvered so that you don't get birds and other things coming through the windows.
Okay. Very good.
It's nicely ventilated up here. I mean, it's cool here compared to downstairs.
Yeah.
Another detail on insulation is these hatchways were all sealed with rubber seals so that when the door comes, it's completely air sealed.
Very good. Thanks.
Part of the Faithful Footprints conservation project involved putting in programmable thermostats. These are Wi-Fi compatible, so they can be done from any iPhone. And basically what it does is your temperature is lowered while the church is not occupied. And then during church offices or just prior to Sunday service, it ramps up the temperature. And after service or after hours, it lowers itself back down again automatically.
Very good.
All the church windows, there's 38 windows in the basement. And our original concept was to get a contractor to come in and do it. The bid came in at $5,000 to retrofit the windows, and we did it with church personnel. And actually, with that, we had 2 co-op students do it as well. So they got community service hours. So anyway, with the Faithful Footprints grant program, what happens is if you get a legitimate contract quote for doing a job and you take it on yourself, you get the price of the contract put onto your project.
Very good.
Okay, inside the boiler room, one of the things that the Faithful Footprints program requires is an energy audit. A certified energy audit be done before you can commence work. And this is one of the highlighted areas was the heat loss from the boiler room piping. This was all exposed bare piping. And again, we had a contract quote to do all of the insulation in here. The quote was for $8,000, and what we ended up doing was finding a local supplier for the insulation materials. And 2 of our church ladies, Stacy Williams and Catherine Phillips, came in, and they installed all the insulation. On the
Wow,
piping.
wow.
So,
Well done, Kathy and Catherine and Stacy.
yeah. Stacy was hard to train, but other than that, it was fine. And even the valves and the pumps have removable blankets, so that if one of them fails or needs maintenance or whatever, they just take the blanket off and redo the valve.
Yeah.
I'll show you the. this is a look at the insulation material, and the supplier that we used, that's fiberglass insulation, but it comes with a cover, and the cover you remove an adhesive strip.
Oh, wow.
And it just joins itself together. So it becomes kind of a one-piece thing where you don't have to do your insulation, then your cover.
Right.
So it was very easy for us to do.
So people could use that in their homes on their hot water
Oh, absolutely.
pipes?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Another thing we did was this. This insulating material, it's a foam material. All of the hot water piping in the church was covered with this insulation material too. So, and I'll take you around back
Okay,
and show
yeah.
you another piece of the project. I don't know if you can see it or not. But this is a little recirculation pump, and you can see all of our piping is all insulated. So this recirculation pump, it sends hot water out to our bathrooms and our kitchen area, and it circulates hot water out, and then it returns it back to the hot water tank again. So we eliminated 2 electric hot water tanks for our bathrooms, and just use this little guy here, and it's all part of our boiler system, so we don't need hot water tanks at all.
Wow.
Yeah.
Good work.
Okay. Women's washroom, we're allowed in here because there's no women here today. But as part of the project, we installed these economy high efficiency toilets. And the way we were able to do that, we have a very progressive board of directors, in my opinion. But with the project, we were required to put in $15,000, and Faithful Footprints gave us matching grant of $30,000. So with that money, by the time we did our own boiler room piping and our own sealing and caulking with the basement windows, we ended up with actually a surplus of money. So we were able to put these toilets in and do some other bathroom retrofits too. But these are water saver toilets, and in the spirit of conservation, that's the board approved, and we went and got the bathrooms retrofitted.
Very good. Now, was there any inside work on the windows?
There was. It was quite a bit of caulking and sealing to do on the inside of the windows. And not directly related to the conservation project, but we've been in here doing some painting and retrofitting. This bathroom's been all redone and repainted.
Okay. Do you want to show us Tammy's
Sure,
the heat pump?
Yep.
Yep.
You want to see the outside, or do you just?
Oh, is it outside?
Yeah, the condenser's outside.
Oh,
Evaporator's in here.
okay. Well, let's have a look at both then.
A heat pump in the church office. As you can tell, it's inset a little bit into the ceiling, and the reason we did that is so that we didn't need a pump to pump up the condensing water. So we inset it up into the ceiling, so it would naturally drain to the outside without being pump assisted.
So, Larry, that offers heating and cooling?
No, just cooling.
Oh, just cooling.
Just
Okay,
cooling.
yeah.
Yeah, but it's Energy Star and high efficiency. So where the piping used to go through the wall here, that used to be a window shaker, and used a lot of power. So this one is just whisper quiet and really energy efficient.
Very good.
So Larry, that was a very interesting tour to go up into the church attic and see the upgrades in the insulation and the changes that it makes in our carbon footprint. I always remember Les Whiting at every fall and every spring, he would mention about he was going up into the attic to either remove the vents or put the vents back in place. So I think Les Whiting will quite appreciate our video this morning. So, but let's talk a little bit about the things around climate change, climate justice for Earth Day.
I think a lot of people that go to church don't understand the relationship between the Christian faith of the church and what's going on with climate change. And in that, I mean that we are supposed to have dominion over the earth, not dominance over the earth, but dominion. What we do in our day-to-day lives, taking things for granted, like you just get into your car and away you go. You,
Yeah.
you don't stop and think, okay, for every mile I drive, I just put 3/4 of a pound of CO2 into the atmosphere.
Right.
We
Yeah.
we need to come to understand.
Even waking up this morning on a Sunday morning, there's tasks that we hardly think about, like turning on a light, taking a shower, and eating breakfast. And yet our routine actions impact people and places around the world, often contributing to environmental degradation. We can help bring healing to God's people and God's earth by examining our routines and changing our habits to live more simply and sustainability. You've been on a few of the Zoom meetings that I've been on, like for the love of creation.
The love of creation, it's really built on three different premises. One is the climate, and what it means to you. The second one deals with concern to action, and that's where you get into advocacy, where the group wants to print letters to our government asking for climate justice and those kind of things. And then the third section is really for the advanced group that is building a better future. It's faith-based, and I guess that's what interests me is again the relationship of the church and Christianity towards climate change and how we're dealing with it.
Looking at your email from a few weeks ago about the 100-kilometer dinner, can you say more about that and how that affects climate change?
What we're planning on doing is putting on a 100-kilometer dinner, and what that involves is all the ingredients, the produce, the food, the supplies, everything has to come within 100 kilometers of Petrolia. The significance of that is to highlight the fact that we have local producers to supply these kind of things, but it's also to create an understanding of the community. Does it make any sense at all to take a Norway fishery that is taking fish, transporting it to China, having it packaged, and then transported back to Norway for sale? The only reason that kind of thing is being carried on is the artificial price of carbon fuel. Those types of things we need to change, and by highlighting the fact that we have local produce and local food that we can do, it keeps money in the economy, and it supports local producers, and it lowers your footprint on food and sustainability.
Anything else that you can think of, Larry?
No, I'd just like to go over again with Faithful Footprints. That program, I think there's been 187 churches so far that have got involved in the program, 187 congregations. But St. Paul's is one of the very few churches that applied for and was granted the maximum allowance for conservation projects, the $30,000. A lot of others, and I guess if this ever got out to any other congregations, would really recommend that you go after your maximum benefit. By having your congregation put in 15,000, you get a grant back from the United Church of 30,000, basically $2 back for every dollar you put in. The other thing is that your faith community can really benefit. Any project that you decide to do in your church with your own church labor, if you have a legitimate contract price from somebody, you can actually do it with your own church labor and get credit for that amount that was in the contracts. The United Church, I know, is looking to get 500 congregations to get involved by 2025, and that's pretty good stretch goal, but hopefully the other churches will get on board and be like us, conserve.
Thank you so much for all your work. I know it was a lot of paperwork, applying for the grants and finding out what we were able to access. And I think it's such a good news story that it's good that we share what we're doing in the church, because we want to be role models for climate change, climate justice, and we need to share the story. I know the board knows about the story, but does the whole congregation know? So I think it's so important that we share it on Earth Sunday. And there really is a movement, ecumenical movement within the church that all the churches are getting on board for climate change. I want to take this opportunity to thank you for giving us a tour of the church and the upgrades. Unless you got anything else you want to add that you can think of.
The only thing we didn't touch on too is the fact that the church has been retrofitted now over to LED. And if you think about it, even things like that are kind of a miracle unto themselves, because who would have thought that 20 years ago you could have taken an incandescent bulb, changed over to LED, and used 90% less energy to power it. That in itself is a miracle. If we can work these little miracles into our daily lives, we'll make it okay.
That's a good way to close, Larry. Thank you very much.